Hey everybody, it's Peter, and this is the 2024 Kawasaki Z900. But it's the first time we get to look at this bike when we know all about the 2025 Z900. And there's a little bit of controversy because here in Canada where I'm filming, this bike is the exact same MSRP as the 2025 bike, and the 2025 bike on the spec sheet is better. You should just buy it. Right? Well, that's what we're going to discuss because there's a little bit more to that story. And again, I'm filming here at Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals, Jim Gilbert's Power Sports. This is the #1 volume Kawasaki store in the country. And even though it's January in Canada, I am looking around, and as far as I can see, and it's a long ways, there are motorcycles everywhere here. So you do not have to wait to have snowmobiles cleared out of the way here. You can come buy bikes today, including this one. But should you buy this one or the 2025? I think there's a case for each bike, and I'm going to help you decide which person you are, which bike you should buy in this video. So let's get going with this sort of semi-review because again, what we're really doing, we've done full reviews of this bike in the past, but what we're really doing is looking at this bike compared to a 2025, and we'll pull the 2025 in here as soon as it arrives and get it on video as well. So if you're interested in that bike, hit subscribe because the second it hits the floor here, we'll have all kinds of videos on it to make sure all your questions are answered. But if I can't do these side by side, we're going to be able to refer to this video to help you decide if maybe there's a an older one sitting in the showroom next to where you are and you want to decide which one's best. So long intro, let's get going with this video. So I want to be really clear. I am a strong advocate for never buying a bike from a spec sheet. And this is where a lot of people end up making the wrong purchase. They sit there and say, well, this bike has these specs and this one has these specs, so therefore this is the better bike, and all the magazines and all the YouTube channels agree that this is the better bike. So they buy the better bike and then they find that they don't enjoy it as much as the bike that was best for them. So while I'm an advocate of not buying a bike based on the spec sheet, this bike and the 2025 are so similar in key ways, and the 2025 just adds on really nice features. For me, it would be hard to buy this bike over that bike unless. So we'll talk about that in less a second, but let's talk about a couple things you've got going on here. So first of all, you've got a different style brake on the 2025. So we'll pull you into the brake, we'll talk brakes and wheels, we'll move our way back through this and talk about the changes only, and then we'll help you decide which one's best for you. So just to be clear, I'm looking at the non-SE model. So this is the entry-level model, and a couple of the differences you're going to see here is that the SE model used to have, or still does have, a radial mount caliper, although that one had Brembo brakes. It also had a different fork tuning, a higher end fork. So now what you've got here is on the 2024, it's still this style brake where you don't have the radial mount, which is just a little different mount. Even on the base model on 2025, you're going to have a radial mount brake. Now, in theory, that adds extra stiffness and some benefits that way. To the average rider, it may not make a whole lot of difference. The SE model has Brembo brakes. They also have steel braided lines, and that certainly does change the feel of the brake. It has a little bit more of a immediate feel, a race feel. But will the brake pads and that kind of thing make a huge difference in everyday riding? You're not going to notice a massive difference in braking, but you do have a better style, which looks cooler, and you have a better style which actually technically is a better style. Will it make a difference to you? Maybe not. The other big difference is you've got these Dunlop Road Sport 2 tires. There is a Dunlop tire on the 2025. It is a slightly upgraded tire. Again, something you have to consider because again, just bike for bike, if it just had a better tire and it was the same price, you'd want to go with a better tire. However, nothing wrong with these. These are very class competitive. And again, we're going Dunlop to Dunlop. So it's not a huge change, but there is a new tire on the 2025. There are going to be a couple differences in styling, of course. Now, I want to point out styling is an interesting one because they still use the Tsugomi styling. It's just an updated version. So I think the average person that's not into motorcycles isn't really going to be able to tell if they saw one picture or another picture, which one's the more modern one. I think if you saw them side by side, you'd see some changes. There are some differences in the lighting. There are some differences in just the general fairing layout. But to me, from everything I can tell, frame is the same. I know the engine is the same. So the engine, now let's talk about engines being the same. The engine has the same bore and stroke. It has the same CCs, has the same compression ratio. So some articles I've read or some pieces have said new engine. Now I want to point out, new is a word that is used loosely in marketing motorcycles, and because a lot of these bikes, some of these engines go back a long ways. But when we say new, it means changed in a motorcycle. So there are some things that say new engine, but the basic block is the same, compression ratio, all that's the same. I drive the Z900 RS, it happens to be the SE model, but the RS is the retro version of this bike, and it does have some different internal components than this one does. It has different gearing, at least different first gear and different sixth gear, stuff like that. So in that case, you could say that would be a new engine if they brought it into here by marketing standards. So from what I can tell, same engine. Now they may have a couple internal pieces in there. Another change, other than styling and not an engine change, is they did make a change to the seat. Now they've adjusted the amount of urethane in the seat. This is a fairly firm seat. I've been someone who's sort of advocated for the Z900 RS if you want a really comfortable seat. I don't find this seat particularly uncomfortable in just the seating here, but I could see on a longer trip adding a little bit more urethane or changing that seat may make a difference. And it's kind of like when the Ninja 400 and Ninja 500, or Z400, Z500, and again I say Z because I'm filming in Canada, not Z, but when they brought out the 500 versus the 400 Z or Ninja, they did tweak the seat. I never found the Ninja 400 to be uncomfortable, but I did find the Ninja 500 to be a little bit better, and I can understand the changes that they made. So again, nothing too different there. There is also a different handlebar. It's a little thicker handlebar. Now again, my Z900 SE has a thicker handlebar than the non-SE, so does the thicker handlebar make a whole difference to you? Not unless you have accessories that are specifically fit for this bike that may or may not fit the larger handlebar of the other one. I don't think riding position has drastically changed. I think you're going to be basically like this, and if it is changed at all, it's going to be one of those things for most people that if you're comfortable on one, you're going to be comfortable on the other one as well. But there's an electronics package in the 2025 that is what would be holding me from buying this versus the new one. So I'm going to pull out my cheat sheet. We're going to make sure we go over those, and we're going to talk about, is it worth it or is it not? Now, at the same price, absolutely be worth it, but I don't think they're going to be the same price for very long. So let's talk about that electronics upgrades and if it's going to make a difference to you. All right, so I have my cheat sheet here, and let's talk about some of these electronic packages, because for a lot of people, it doesn't really equate to, making sense to people. So first of all, let's talk about what they did. These bikes, this 2024 bike has traction control, it has rider modes, so you do have like a rain mode and other stuff like that. So some of those are here. That rider modes, for instance, is not on the RS models, and it will not be on the RS models for 2025 either. So you already have sort of a step up here over some Kawasaki things, but where this bike fell behind some of its competitors and it's now going to jump right up to the top is in some of these new things. And the key piece to some of this new stuff is the IMU, the what do they call it? Inertial Management Unit. Did a video on these in the past. Basically what it is, this bike has a computer. That computer can sense if the bike rises, so it does wheelies. It can sense if the bike does stoppies. It can sense if the bike slides out. It can sense if the rear wheel slides out or the front wheel slides out. It can sense twisting motions in basically every direction. So it's a 6-axis at least IMU. And what that does is it allows for a number of Kawasaki exclusive technologies. And this is where Kawasaki actually does their technologies very, very well, especially compared to some competitors. So having that inertial management unit, you have things like Kawasaki corner management function. So what that's going to do is it's been on the Ninja 1000, which is also new this year. It's going to be the Ninja 1100 SX, but it's been on that bike for a while. And basically what it can do is it can sense the G-forces of slowing down, whether it's your braking or the engine braking, and it can help you sort of pick the line in the corner. So it's going to work with you electrically to pick a line in the corner, or electronically to help find a line in the corner, to apply braking, and to work with the engine and everything else to reposition the traction control and those kinds of things. So you can find your perfect line every time. Now I want to point out, if you're a casual rider, a street-only rider, or not somebody who's going to be heavily breaking the rules, just because this bike has that function doesn't mean that you're going to activate that function on your 2025. So that is a feature that if you're going to be riding aggressively, it can help you. It will not save you, although it could save you in the right situation, but it can help you. If you're not riding that aggressively, that function will never turn on, so it's something that you don't need. Now, moving through power mode selection, riding modes, we talked about that. The IMU, we talked about that. high-performance brakes with radial-mounted calipers, so they say new high-performance brakes, but these were still high-performance brakes by Kawasaki standards. There's one more thing we're going to talk about. We'll just cover the minor stuff. That updated seat contouring, the new Dunlop SportMax QSA tire, or sorry, Q5A tires. I'm reading here, even though I knew it's Q5A, I thought it said S. All right, so that's the big differences with that IMU. The other thing it's going to allow is cruise control. Now, to me, cruise control is a nice function to have on a 900cc four-cylinder bike because that opens up the idea of going on longer tours. This is a bike which, with aftermarket accessories, you could put some bags on here and you can ride for a long, long time. It's super smooth, it's got lots of torque, lots of power. It's a great engine, but it hasn't always been set up to do tours. Cruise control is standard, even on this base model. Now you do end up with a few other things in the SE model. I'll just scroll back up to the SE model. We talked about the new lighting, that's on both models as well. Now I will talk about what they say about the lighting. All LED lighting package including new LED headlight, taillight, and light guiding technology. I don't know what light guiding technology means. I can look into that, we'll cover that later. You guys probably know, feel free to write that in the comments. Basically, it's new lighting. It's gonna update that. But the big thing is you can also get a quick shifter on the, and USB-C mounting, something like that, on this, or not this model, but on the Z900. So if you want things like that, you will have to go to the 2025, not the 2024. To me, on a spec sheet, that makes it better. But let's talk about which one's better for you and which one I would buy today. And I can tell you that may change over time. So let's wrap up with saying who should buy the 2024 and when you should buy it, and who should buy the 2025 and when you should buy that. So again, the problem that we have between the 2024 in front of me and the 2025 is that Kawasaki has listed the MSRP as the same price. Now there is already in January a discount on this bike. For me, it's not quite at the level of discount that I would want to buy this bike. And if you've ever wondered if I'm independent and can say what I want, I'm basically saying it. Don't buy this bike right now. Although, if you're going to look at the 2025, that is something I would get an order in on right now because that bike is so good with its technology and price that it's not just going to surpass this, it's surpassing a lot of the bikes that stood in front of this on a spec per dollar basis. And I think if you're looking at that bike, it is going to sell very well. So now let's talk if those features that are on the 25 even make a difference to you. So first of all, if you're the kind of person that never uses cruise control, you don't need it, that's an easy one. But some of this other technology stuff, most of the technology, the radial mount brakes that are new, the better spec tires that are new, and that IMU enabled cornering functions and that kind of things, those are only going to come into play for you if you are a very aggressive rider or in certain emergency situations. For the most part, you don't want those systems activating. In other words, if you're a good driver in your car, you don't want traction control activating. You want to be able to control that on your own if you're a good driver and in other ways. But in emergency situations, traction control, ABS, those kinds of things can save you. So that inertial management unit is going to help be more precise in wheelie control, be more precise in sensing what the bike is doing and helping for some intervention. Now I will tell you that again, I own the Z900 RS, the SE model, has the same engine as this, actually makes less peak horsepower, but the traction control is just fine in level 1 to prevent dangerous wheelies. It'll sometimes pop that wheel up just a tiny, tiny bit, but you're not going to do anything scary. So you don't need the IMU for pure wheelie control, but if you're aggressive, you will use that stuff. The other thing is resale value. If you have a 2024 versus 2025 with the extra step up in specs, it's going to have some resale value that's worth considering. So you're going to want to keep that in mind if you're buying this or that. I think this one's going to have to drop more in price. In other words, Kawasaki is going to have to kick more money into the dealers to sell these. I think the 2025 is so good that it's not just going to sway the Kawasaki buyer, it's going to sway buyers that traditionally buy other brands to look at the new model because spec for spec and spec for dollar, it is a fantastic deal. And again, this has always been a great motorcycle. Give it the gas, have fun on it, handle, put a smile on your face, this has been great. Where it's been let down is in the spec department compared to other models, and in 2025, Kawasaki has answered that and put a fantastic price on that. So again, if you're wondering why I never list prices here, these videos can change, prices can change. You know, maybe Kawasaki is going to look at the website and go, we got to bump that price up for 2025. When's the best time to buy a 2025? right now. Get your order in right now because these are still sitting around. The MSRP is the same. You're not going to have the MSRP drop below the 2024. So now is probably your best time to buy a 2025. When's the best time to wait for or to get a 2024? This one's sitting here in the dealer. And I think they like me coming in and doing videos because I help them sell these bikes. And I'm going to tell you right now, January 7th right now is not the time to buy a 2024 in Canada yet. I think Kawasaki's got to come through with a little more discount to make it worthwhile for me because this one is technically under the price of 2025 with the discount, but I think Kawasaki's going to have to step it up. And the flip side is if they don't step it up enough, there will be more discounts later, but you're gonna have to wait. These will sell out. They are priced underneath the 2025 at the dealer level, just not on the website level, the MSRP level. So I hope that makes sense. If you have questions about the technology or which ones to choose here and there, by all means, let me know. I'll do more technology videos and that kind of thing. But this is a fun bike, and it's for a smile per dollar bike, it's always been really good. Adding the specs to not only match, but even exceed some of their competitors, that's a great, great bike and a great value. So 2025, get your orders in right now. 2024, wait a little bit, unless you really, really want this, wait a little bit. And I think you might be able to see a little bit more savings on this bike, which again, if you're not a heavy, heavy, high performance rider, this might be the better bike for you and the better value for you long term. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll talk to you in the next one.